Hello everybody, this is video number 10, which is a continuation of my 1973 05 Eagle remodifications and refurbishment. The following photos are of my 318 Detroit diesel engine before removal from the bus frame. Now as you're looking at these photos, notice all the entanglements of the fuel lines, wires, and so forth, which is all over the engine. And as you will see later on, that these will be corrected. I had to fabricate a fixture to assist me taking my engine out of the bus for inspection of the engine and the engine compartment, and also make plans to make all repairs to both if it was necessary. The engine removal fixture is designed to securely keep 4-ton jacks located on the four corners of the oil pan. I was hoping my gamble of this being a center balance would pay off, and I went for it, and it turned out to be a good gamble. And in a moment you're going to see actual photos of the engine test stand set up and mounted under the engine and ready to lift up the engine to remove from its cradle. You can also see me pulling out my motor using my lawnmower with the engine being strapped down so it wouldn't turn over in the stand that I had made for it. Now you're going to see the actual fixture set up under the bus. They're lifting up my motor around a quarter to a 3/8 of an inch just to get it off the cradle so I can remove it. I hook it up to my lawnmower and I yank her out. And everything was all undone, all the hoses and everything else all undone, and she pulled up just beautiful. And of course then I have the engine outside strapped down on the jacks and everything like that until I get a more permanent fixture that can be made for it. The engine now is sitting on this test stand for cleanup and inspection, but I'm not too optimistic that this engine is any good. But I have no choice to investigate first before getting discouraged. But I do get so. The new engine support brackets had to be fabricated to secure the engine for all the work to be done safely. Upon my initial inspection through the engine portholes, it showed my initial thoughts to be true. I found parts in the inspection holes of liners, and that just scared the hell out of me, and I made a decision. A new engine had to be installed in place of this one. I was just afraid of what was probably inside. Little did I know or think that these material parts in the next photos could be from a previous teardown of this engine, and these parts just stayed there. I did not find any signs of broken liners through the inspection ports. Darn it. I removed the transmission from the engine. I cleaned it as usual and found broken parts and everything like that. Removed them, cleaned up the transmission, and I was hoping that everything was going to be okay to be used again. I wanted to check the clutch at this point as well, and now take a gander at what I found, and again, I was not surprised at all. I can't believe this bus did not have one good part on it, and it cost me $30,000. Jesus. Looking at these photos, you will see hot heat spots on the face of the clutch plate, cracks that are unbelievable, and this clutch could have blown apart over time had I not taken the initiative to tear this baby down. The only good part at this point was the ring gear, which I cleaned up real good and inspected and chose to reuse when I needed to find a new engine to replace this one on my bus. Inspection of the oil pan after removal did not show raw broken material, but I still was not confident this engine was any good after removing the clutch. On my old engine, the forward engine mounts were welded. Very sloppily welding at this, and the welds had cracks in it and everything. This bus had to have a serious road accident. It could have happened at any time, believe me. I was able to get new motor mounts used ones from Eric Brown, which I was very appreciative, to replace the ones that I had, and boy was I glad that I done just that. Now coming up are photos of the engine compartment with the engine removed, and as usual, many repairs were needed and modifications being needed as well. Notice some of the two new fans I installed, one in each corner of the engine compartment, intended to push hot, noisy air out the back of the bus and away from the actual engine compartment when we're going down the road to stop noise and hot air from going up into the engine compartment. And here you can see the pictures of the final product, all ready for the engine to be reinstalled. After making my decision to get another engine, I made a deal with Ed Brenner, who was a bus nut from South Carolina, Myrtle Beach area, and who stated that he had an engine, 8V71, that had been recently rebuilt a few thousand miles earlier. So we made a deal, and Linda and I went to pick it up. But as always, something happened. Ed and I rolled the engine over, transporting it to my trailer, and it took nearly all afternoon to right it up. But we did it and strapped it down, and and Linda and I were headed back to South Carolina with the engine to bring it to its new home. I had to bring my bell housing off of my old engine with me to Ed's to mount on his engine I just purchased, as he sold his bell housing to some other bus nut needing one. Anyhow, this was done to help keep the engine secure on wood blocks during transportation. Now, as you can see, we got the engine completely strapped down safely, and Linda and I were on our way. I received two used aluminum valve covers from Gene Russell of North Carolina, in place of the worthless leaking steel ones I had on my engine and Ed had also on his engine. The cleanup of these valve covers made them look really good, and I was anxious to put them back on the engine with new gaskets and everything like that, so I never have to worry about them leaking like the original ones normally would. They came out really nice. I was really proud of them. After cleaning up my new engine, it was necessary to change the front engine gearing to bring my engine up to 318 horsepower. Mike and I turned the engine over and over by using the hand ratchet on the end of the engine crank to install new injectors and clean all upper and engine parts of the rack. My job to clean it, and then Mike reinstalled everything, and in doing so, because of his expertise as an old mechanic, Detroit diesel mechanic, he knew his stuff. I felt confident that my engine would be set up properly with Mike's supervision and also him actually setting up and running the rack for me, which I was very appreciative of. I'm telling you, it's nice to have a friend like this, and it makes you feel confident that all the work that you're doing, especially internal work of an engine like this, is seen by somebody, overseen by somebody that knows what the hell they're doing, because I sure didn't. And I'm so happy that this engine, I can't wait to hear the engine actually after all the work that we've done. I'm now at the point where I had to get ready to assemble my bell housing from my old engine onto my new engine, but of course I had to clean up and paint my old engine bell housing to be used on my new engine. After that task of cleaning and the bell housing and everything, we assembled it to my engine. And Mike and I, we came up with a system to make sure that the bell housing was centrally located on the engine by putting an indicator on mounting on the crankshaft, and I turning the crankshaft and Mike indicating it, watching the indicator to make sure that we're centrally located, and we had no problem. Every time any device was disassembled on my new engine, that new hardware is always used, and thread lubricant also used for ease of assembly and disassembly if ever needed again in the future. There you can see us now while we're indicating the inside bore of the bell housing after it's being assembled. I want to take the time now to thank Clifford for sending me, at no cost to me, a complete gasket set for a complete engine rebuild and everything, and it was really great because I had everything that he knew that I would need to do the process here that I've accomplished. Unfortunately, during my inspection of the new engine, I discovered that my engine blower was contaminated with oil, grease, and dirt, and so forth. So this had to be torn down, cleaned, and reassembled, painted, and then reassembled to the engine. New bearings were installed in the blower at the time of the cleaning and the reassembly. As you can see, there was a lot of contamination on the inside of the blower, which was also getting in the inside of the engine. So I'm hoping that with the work that I've done here on the blower, that we won't have to worry about the situation no more. You see, it came out right. All holes were all retapped. All new bolts were all reused. I mean, all used. Nothing old was assembled with old bolts. And she looks pretty good right there, ready to go on the engine. The new engine now is on the test stand for part of my modifying of the front of my engine. As you can see again, the front of my old engine was horrible with the layout of fuel lines and wires and so forth. I completely reinstalled the new engine with new fuel lines and run them using fixtures that I'd made to make all connections shorter and more securely to the engine. This immediately made the engine sight more pleasant to look to view. Now you can see the modifications at that time, how they made it look more pleasant. Notice closely too that you will see that the engine manifold and exhaust pipe are completely wrapped with insulation. This was something that I was wanting to do for my engine as well. My new engine now is on its dyno test stand and shows some signs of new modifications I made from the original messy design. I set up my new engine to run on this test stand with a radiator hookup, all gauges needed to monitor what was going on, and also the connection of my new air throttle foot treadle I also mounted. Another modification was the two fuel filter canisters that were on the front of the engine originally. I rearranged them and a little bit over to the left of the engine. Now to see the actual running of the engine after all the repairs and everything that we've done to it, you're going to have to watch video number 11. And it's about 14 minutes long, and it's already been on YouTube before, but now it goes in line with these other videos, and I hope you'll enjoy watching it.